Good morning and welcome. My name is Tena Breeggemann and I'm here with you today with Sexy Hair. We are going over some of our favorite layering techniques utilizing our structure and motion hair cutting system. This system is so unique because it allows you creative freedom within your haircut to customize your haircuts to every single client that you have. And I don't know about you guys, but I have been seeing a lot more layers within haircuts. We're getting a lot more texture involved within the haircuts. We might still love the long, like beachy looks like this, but I myself even have put in so many more layers up throughout my hair because I want to have volume. And so today we're going to be concentrating on how do we achieve those layers? How do we achieve the final look with the products that we have available to you with Sexy Hair? And how can we get that perfect volumized beachy finish going into the fall? And again, this morning, as you're joining, please conversate with me. We are doing these virtual classes, which are so fun because you can join me from the comforts of wherever you are, but I do like to interact with you. So if you're joining, please go ahead and say hello. Let me know where you're coming from, maybe a little bit something about yourself, and those will come through and we can chat together. Also, if you have any questions as we are doing this haircut, as we're talking products, or if you have a really great tip that you like about a product, I would love for you guys to share that with me as well, because we learn from each other. I have found some of my best tips for how to use product by people like you when we're just talking about how you use it in the salon, how you talk about it with your clients, your guests, and how we can all learn from each other. So we're going to start today just with a brief overview. So again, my name is Tena Breeggemann. I am a platform artist and have been an educator with Sexy Hair for 12 years. So I have enjoyed watching this company grow. And to understand where we are now, we need to know where we started. And we started as a company driven by hairstylists, meaning that all these products that we have today, they were formulated with the hairstylist in mind. So what will benefit you behind the chair, what will help you retail to your clients. And I know right now we are really in the depths of our retail moment. And so I want to give you the tools to talk about these products and really help you understand how to educate your clients. Because at the end of the day, we don't really just want to sell anything. We want to educate and empower our clients to do great hair at home. And the retail sales just fall into place right after that. So we started as a hairstyling company driven by hairstylists. And again, meaning when we have a new product launch, these have been tested and have gone through the hands of many hairdressers before they ever get to the shelves, because we want to make sure that everything that comes to you has had the hairstylist hands behind it and the stamp of approval. So with that in mind, we're going to go into talking about structure and motion. So yes, we are a retail product company, but one of the things that we're really known for as well is our hair cutting system. Structure and motion, like I said earlier, is a system that allows you to move through angles within a haircut. What does that mean? For me personally, it has changed the way that I do layers within hair. I think that there's a lot of great ways to cut layers. We see a lot of free education now, like you're seeing here. But there's certain things that will work for different head shapes than will for another. For example, have you ever cut layers into hair and one side lays completely different than the other side? Part of that can be because your client's head shape might be different shaped on one side versus another. I, for example, have a very peaked scalp, meaning I don't know if I just have a peak right up here, right down here. So I do pretty well with my hair being center parted or just barely off center. But I lack a lot of volume right here because all my volume comes from the tip of my head. So really utilizing that and really seeing what I can do to amplify the volume in this area is something that I strive to do. So looking at your client's head shape and seeing where we can offer a little bit more volume, where I can give a little bit more to that haircut is how I'm going to determine how I move forward. So a couple things we're going to talk about is how we hold our shears. This sounds goofy because we've been doing hair for, at this point, I've been doing hair for 20 something years. And when I started doing structure in motion, this felt a little bit different. Because we were talking about when I'm utilizing my shears, where I'm handling them. A lot of times we take our thumb and we just stick it right in there and we go to town. And really, you're going to see me when I work, I'm actually taking my thumb and just putting it right in the tip of my thumb is in there, offering me a little bit more movement and versatility. I also have a really great pair of shears that allows me to have a lot of movement, but I have in the past had ones that were fixed. So this technique can work with no matter what shears you have. But what we're going to talk about is our body positioning as we're working. I think the biggest thing that I notice whenever I teach in a salon is how people hold their body. I walked into a salon once and the hairstylist was cutting hair and she was standing like this, cutting her hair. And at the end of the day, when we think about if we were to stand like this all day long, okay, where are we going to hurt? We're going to hurt in our shoulders and in our lower back. And these are two places that hairstylists really struggle with and can be a career killer. So we want to make sure to maintain really good body posture and positioning as we're cutting hair and be very mindful of it, because that's the thing that will continue to keep us having a very long, very good career. So first of all, I'm going to change my positioning and I will try to stand back a little bit so you can see we're in a little tighter space, but I'm going to open up my foot angle. I'm going to actually move this camera back slightly. You'll see a little bit more of my space. Okay, so as we stand, we're going to move our feet shoulder width apart. And the reason for that is because our feet, when they are shoulder width apart, we have more strength in our legs. So we're going to be putting all that weight and that pressure instead of on our lower back, on our legs. Okay, so we're going to be using our knees and our legs to take the brunt of the weight of what we're doing. So instead of standing like this, I'm going to put my feet shoulder width apart and actually lower my body positioning so that I can see what I'm doing, but my back and my posture is still really good. Now, bad knees. I'm over my 40s and I can't just be like this all day. So one of the other things is taking our legs and putting one foot in front of the other. And now we're bending. This feels so much more comfortable. And this takes the pressure off our knees, puts the strength right back into our legs. And then we're able to move down and keep a good body positioning. So we're going to work on that as we're doing our haircut. Today I did her haircut. I just cut the perimeter, brought it straight down from where it lives, cut off that perimeter, did the same thing all the way around. We're not doing anything, we're not doing anything crazy with her haircut there. Now I'm going to move this back so we can get a little closer again. Thank you for your patience. So now we're going to go into if I want to cut layers. We have created this very solid perimeter, but now she came to me and told me that she really wants to have a lot more volume and a lot more movement on the top. So here's a couple things to consider. When we have somebody that comes in with their hair and they want to add layers, we want to think about what kind of density and what kind of hair type do they have, because we do want to accommodate to that. So first of all, let's say that this client has super thick hair and she says, they say, I would like to take some density out of my hair. You could go in with your thinning shears, which I utilize a lot, but we could go in there with intention first if we would like to. So I'm actually going to separate the front section from the back. And we are going to work on this back section here. I'm going to clip that right out of the way. And I know that we won't be able to see the questions on replay, but if there's any questions, I will repeat them out loud and make sure that it makes sense for the question we're asking later on camera. Okay, so I'm going to clip that out of the way. Now she has lots of thick hair. So I'm going to subdivide the back section in half. And we're going to be working with this bottom subsection to take out some of that density and then give her that volume, okay? So clipping that up and out of the way, I'm going to go back in, make sure my sectioning is good. And now I really get to work with this bottom subsection. This is where I find a lot of people carry a lot of their density, a lot of the thickness within their hair. So I'm going to go through and make sure that it is completely saturated. It's easier to work with hair when it is saturated, especially if we're creating layers. Now, I also like to utilize our Tri-Weed leave-in conditioner. This is a great cutting tool for any time that you're going to be working within a haircut. Actually, all of my haircuts. Every single haircut I do put this on the hair because it gives a really good slip to the hair and allows me to cut a lot freer and easier. So I go in with my Tri-Weed leave-in conditioner, and I'm going to subdivide this hair in the back into 5 subsections. Why 5? There is no hard and fast rule. It just depends on the density of the hair. And also I think sometimes we complicate haircuts too much and we're like, oh, did Tina say I have to 5 sections here or 7 sections there? No, what you need to do is to be able to control the hair. So if you can control the hair in 3 sections, meaning they don't have a lot of hair to work with in the back, then do 3 sections. If they have a ton of hair and you can't get it in 5, do 7. But really the goal here is to control the hair that's in your hands. So whatever that means for you, I'm going to do 5 because on a mannequin, it tends to be easier to have 5 subsections. And I just twist those out of the way. This guy needs to go over here. And I twist them so that I can see exactly where each section is. Now, when I first started doing hair, did I ever subdivide sections? No, I did not. I didn't see the value in it. I felt like it was taking too much time away from my haircut and that I was kind of wasting time, I think is what my mentality was. But what I found was I actually waste more time by recombing and trying to find where I left off if I don't subdivide the sections. So now it's something I do every single time, specifically when I'm doing something like taking weight out or I am putting layers in, I subdivide and I go through. So I'm going to start in this center back section. Now, earlier I talked about I have my feet shoulder width apart. Now, this is something it's easier to showcase in person, but we're going to do our very best so that you can understand it through this camera. My feet are shoulder width apart. I have one foot in front of the other. So currently for me, my left foot is in front and my right foot is behind me. The reason for that is I'm going to be cutting down. I'm going to be taking out weight. And I need to be able to see what I'm doing and have an open body posture. If I had my right foot forward, me as a right-handed person that cuts hair, this would feel really awkward, right? It even looks awkward in comparison, but I change my body positioning and all of a sudden that looks much more comfortable. So that's our goal. We want our body to be in the most comfortable position. If you are like, I don't remember which foot, just do both and see which one is more comfortable. And it's actually easy to figure out like, oh, yep, that feels more comfortable. It will also change depending on if you are a left-handed cutter or a right-hand cutter, because if I was a lefty, I would be changing my body positioning. So we're going to start with my left foot forward because I'm a right-handed cutter. I have my control hand up. That just means that my fingers are up and I can decide how much weight I want to take out of this section of hair. So she said, we were talking earlier that this client has super dense hair. This mannequin is not the best case scenario to showcase that, but let's pretend she has super dense hair and she wants to take out thickness out of her hair. We want to control that. We're going to adjust where we want to enter her hair, and then we're going to move our way down. If you have ever done razor cutting before, this is similar in the sense of if you can do this, you can do this. Okay, what's the difference? Why would we do one over the other? The difference would be is I can control the bite with my blade versus a razor is going to, you can control it a little bit, but this is going to give me a much more defined. So I can either take big chomp bites or I can take many small bites and create a lot of little bit texture. So I control it completely. That is why I would use this over that. And so for her, I'm going to take this section of hair. I can elevate this depending on what I want to do. I'm going to elevate it at 45. You could go up to 90 if you felt like you wanted to take a lot out, but the higher we elevate, the more that we're going to be taking out. So we're going to start at 45 degrees. I'm going to enter in a couple inches away, about halfway down the hair strand, and I'm going to enter in with my shears open. Now, before I do this, I'm going to show you something. When I go in, I'm not just cutting without any anchor. I actually take my fingers and I anchor it to my shears. So I am anchored, this knob of my shears is anchored completely with my fingers the whole way down. So I'm not just, the shears aren't out here free flowing. They are in one, we are working in unison with my fingers, okay? So you can see, again, I'm placing it, I'm anchoring it. So as my fingers move down, my shears move down. It's not just going without it. That's another difference between this and a razor cut. This is extremely controlled, and I am putting in the exact amount of texture that I want along the way. So I will get into showing you what I mean by that. 45 degrees with the center subsection elevated, 45 degrees. I'm going to go in, anchor my shears, and I'm going to open and close. I'm doing little bites, as you can see. And I'm going to go all the way down to the end, and I can drop that elevation down to 0 as I get towards the end of that perimeter. Now what you're left with is really nice texture from roots to ends, or excuse me, from the middle of that section to the ends. Now we're going to move to the next subsection. How do I know where to go from here? For this, I'm going to pick up my previous cut subsection. This is my guide for every other section on the left and the right side. So on the left, I'm going to take this previously cut subsection as my guide. I'm going to comb out my side subsection.
Detected at the front door.
Sorry, my Alexa's saying hello. We are going to comb that out, bring it down to a 45-degree angle, elevation, excuse me. I'm going to then take my guide from the previous section and put that in, and that's where I start. So I'm going to do the same thing again, anchoring my shears on, working that down to the perimeter, and I can drop that elevation as we get to the end. And then again, I'm left with beautiful layers from inside out. Why am I moving down? Why would I be moving down? I'm trying to cut out and take out density, because that's what we're trying to do here. When we get to the next section, we're going to try to create some internal layers as well. On this back corner section right here, this is where that hair gets really fine, right? We don't have, a perfect section here behind the ear. So this section, I actually like to take and laterally direct it to the previously cut section so that I'm giving it a little bit more room, have a little bit more length and density in there, so I'm not cutting a hole. I think we've all done this, where we've been doing a haircut and then right here we cut it just like everything else, and we're left with a big hole right behind the ear because there is not enough hair to support that section. So on that one, I like to always take that subsection and just bring it over to the previously cut section. Just laterally direct that back a little bit. And then now we're going to repeat that process, taking up our previously cut guide. That's our little roadmap, going in, anchoring my shears and opening and closing. I'm doing little nibbles with my shears. So when I say little nibbles again, I'm going in with my shears, and you can see that in general, I'm not going chomp, chomp, chomp like this. I'm actually only really moving my thumb up and down to really create that texture. We'll finish that off on the other side too. So here's our subsection. And finding our previously cut guide right here. Place that in there so I know exactly where to start. Our elevation of the hair section is 45 degrees. I go in and I lock it in and I walk it down and taking little nibbles as I go. Okay. So we're going to continue on. You've seen these sections. We've done 3. I could finish this off, but I have a fully finished mannequin and I don't want to waste your time. So we're going to move on to the next subsection. Now, this one is going to be where somebody wants internal volume, like they are struggling to get volume. We want them to have volume. So we're going to start first by we have this top crown section. I'm going to subdivide this in half horizontally across and drop that down. And we're going to work on the very top layer last because we want to create a lot of volume in there. So again, I'm going to wet this down, making sure that our sections are thoroughly saturated. I like to utilize our Tri-Week leave-in conditioner as our cutting aid. Working that through. And again, why do we pick, how many subsections do we pick? Totally depends on the shape of the head. Now we are getting around a larger shape of the head, so you could easily subdivide this into more. I also want to be keeping this in a timely fashion. So we're going to do 5 again. I'm going to subdivide this into 5 subsections and twist those out of the way once we get those moving. If you wanted to, you could clip these out of the way, but I find it's just easier to twist them out of the way just so that they don't get tangled within each other. We're basically always trying to maintain control within the haircut so that we are able to know exactly where we left off from the last section and not intermingle those. Okay, so we're going to pick up this section and we should have a piece that's shorter underneath, and there she is. There she is. That's our underneath section that we just cut where we did the down and out. So we can drop that down or we can use that as our guide underneath if we would like. But really, we're going to treat these two as different because I'm talking about 2 different haircuts. That was if we have somebody who wants to deflate, take out density. This is going to be, we're going to create volume and get a lot of lift. So for this client, they have very little hair to work with. I feel like these are usually the clients that need a lot of volume, and I am one of those, that I have fine textured hair. I have a lot of it, as you can see, but the hair itself is very fine. So I like to utilize a lot of different techniques to get internal volume and volume on the top of the hair as well. So for here, I'm going to actually do a motion where it looks like a rainbow. So we're going to go into our section and I'm going to hold that section straight out from that head shape. And we're going to have it at 90 degrees straight out. I'm going to go in with my shears looking like a martini glass. And I'm going to actually, my hands look a little contorted because I am high for the camera. If my client was in my chair, she would be like down here. Just so you know, I want you to understand that, again, this is a little high for me, but that's just so that we can have it on camera for you guys. When a client was in my chair, they would be down here. So my wrist wouldn't be extended the way that it is. But we want to make sure that we're lifting straight out. Now I'm going to go in wherever I want to start taking out some length, and I'm going to not do it yet. I'll show you. I'm going to go up and nibble all the way down to the ends. So we're going to get kind of, it'll look almost like a little rainbow movement. So straight out. I don't want to take out too much because this client has fine hair. So I'm not going to start way back here. That would take out way too much hair density. I'm going to start closer to the ends. And I'm going to go up and down and work that out till the ends. And what that does is creates this movement inside where we have shorter pieces underneath that allows shorter pushes long, and we're going to be lifting up from inside the hair. We're going to start creating volume inside. So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And actually here is, I think our previously cut section would be a pretty good guide, because here she is. Here's our previous guide. So if we started there, we're going to be taking off just the bottom, just to take some of that off. So it's completely up to the density of the hair, depending on where you enter that hair in order to get that volume. Now, again, we're at this back corner section, but we have the section underneath. So we have that density already established. So because of that, we don't need to laterally direct back unless you wanted to do so to create a little bit more length towards the front. But for now, we don't. We want to just take that straight out. Again, here's our subsection, taking that straight out from where it lives. And I'm going to start right about here, and we're going to go up all the way to the perimeter and walking it out. So I'm not cutting the perimeter off. I'm actually allowing the perimeter to maintain. I haven't left any of that, but it's getting from the inside shorter all the way to the ends. Okay, so you'd repeat that on all the rest of the subsections. We're going to do that on this side too. We have our left subsection, enter in, pull straight out from the head shape, lock those shears in. Again, see how my shears are landing right on my nail of my fingers, and they're not moving around, they're just resting. And we're going to walk that out. Very good. And then our last subsection. I can hear some people joining. So again, if you are joining me and you haven't met me yet, please introduce yourself. Let me know who you are, where you're coming from. I love to hear where you guys are coming from. I appreciate you being here today. I am so grateful that we live in a world that we can do these virtual classes, and we can meet people from all over the world and connect on this level, because it really, though I love in person, nothing will ever replace in person. This is such a great and effective way for all of us to really continue this education and the motivation to do so. So I'm so happy you guys are here today. All right, we're going to now move to that top layer. So what we have done so far is we already pre-established a perimeter. She was already done before we started this. On the bottom section, we were talking about if you have a client who has extreme density in their hair and they want to move that out, where you take each section and you bring it out at a 45-degree angle and cut down and out. And that will help to remove density from the hair. And you would start in on the hair depending on the thickness that you wanted to take out. So if you want to take a lot out, you go closer to the head shape and then work your way out. If you just want to take a little middle to middle ends and remove that weight. Then on this top section, we are working on creating internal volume. So internal volume means it's not on the top layer, not the one that you can see, but it's the one right underneath inside. We're trying to create internal volume to really push up that hair strand throughout the day so that it's not only relying on this top section. For this section, we subdivided into 5, could be 3 or 7, depending on how much hair density they have. We took that hair straight out, and then moving up and out in an arced or rainbow type cutting movement, we created that short to long inside the internal texture of the hair. Now we're going to move to this top section. This is the moneymaker. This is where people see their layers, they see their texture, they love to really get that here. And I, for one, have, like I said earlier, I have been noticing so many more people wanting very distinctive layers. If we look at kind of the styles that we're starting to see, we are seeing versions of, I want to say like 2007, early 2000s, I hate to say like emo hair, but that is what I go to in my head. I'm seeing those type of layers. I'm seeing those really exaggerated PC volume. It's an exaggerated shag, so to speak, where we're getting a lot more volume on the top. So for this, we have the front and back divided. We have just the crown area that we're going to start working with right here. So we have the crown, and I'm going to wet it down again to make sure that it's saturated. Now, this is where we change our sectioning a little bit. I personally always change it to this pattern. Do you have to? No. To me, it just makes sense. I change my sectioning on the crown to a radial sectioning. And what that means is instead of a rectangle, we're going to this all the way around. So the reason I do that is because now we're on the top round of the head. And if you imagine a beach ball, they all have this triangle that comes to a point. And the purpose of that is that we're trying to create width. We're trying to create movement within the hair right on the top here. So if you imagine, if we take if we took just a rectangle section and then we push the hair together because we're going to cut that section, you only move this far, right? So when you release the hair, it's only going from here to here. If we have a radial section, okay, this is our sectioning. We're going to pull it together in our fingers to cut it. And then what happens when we release that section? It moves back out here. So we're getting more of this, the hair will stay the same right up here, but in this bottom area, you're seeing width, you're seeing this movement that's happening, and that's what we're going for. So that's why I like to take this top section, and I personally enjoy always doing the crown in a radial sectioning pattern. So I'm going to take that and I do a triangle in the middle. Depending on, again, this depends on their hair density and how much control you want to have, depends on how many sections you're going to take. So I'm going to do 5 just because I do want to have pretty good control. If I wanted more wide movement, I would only do 3 because I want more expansion through that bottom. But for this time, I want to do 5 just to create that a little bit more movement and have some more control through that top here. So here's our last section that I will subdivide. And I don't think I saw any questions coming through. So if I'm missing any, please let me know. But here is our sectioning. So you can see we have this radial sectioning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I said that. Yeah, there it is. I was like, I said 5. Did I see 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There they are. Okay, we found them. All right, in this, we're always going to start in this middle section. Now, this is where you get to be, this is where the consultation is just from you to like you and your client work together. This is where I always ask, like, what kind of height are you looking for? And this is where this gets to be really fun. So in this section in the middle, I'm going to pick this up. And we talked about it. This client wants to have really exaggerated, shorter layers. Okay, so I'm going to move her and lift this straight up. So you can see already that this perimeter is already falling out. We're not worried about the perimeter. It's not going anywhere. She would like to get short layers, but if I were just to lift up and cut like the traditional layering where we just lift straight up and cut straight off, that would be a very, very harsh shelf-like layer, and we really don't want that. We're not seeing shelf layers. We're seeing lots of layers and lots of movement, but it's not super defined. So for this, we're going to lift up, and I'm going to discuss, we're going to go pretty short. We're going to go right up here, but I'm going to, instead of taking it straight off, I'm going to take it and elevate it across and walk it out. And the reason I'm doing that is, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just have to pause for a second. This mannequin has a little gold. Do you guys see this little gold piece, little gold strand? Fun fact is that means when they were sewing this mannequin, they took a break and they put a little piece of gold thread in there to mark where they needed to start again. I find that fascinating. So I hope you do too. But I like to take, so we're going to start with where we're starting. and we're going to move across the head shape. So earlier when we were talking about, we're utilizing our own client's head shape to determine the volume. That's what I'm talking about. We're taking this and wrapping it around their own head shape to customize it to what their hair does here. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do my best not to block the camera, but still let you see. I'm going to go here. All right. I want to go in where I want the volume to be, and I'm going to walk it. I'm taking little nibbles all the way across until I run out of hair. Okay. So now we have that top section done. Here's our top volume. That is short. That's short on purpose. Like we want to have some short pieces in there. So now, and that's what she asked for. She wanted those really exaggerated short layers. Now, if I didn't want to go that short, obviously I don't start where I just started. So let's pick up another one and show you something not so exaggerated. So if we were to repeat that exact same section, what I would do is lift up the point of the last section. Here's the point of the last one, right? Here it is. Here's our shortest piece. Lift it up. That would be our guide for the next one. If we wanted to continue on, so I would lift up. Here would be my guide right there. I would go in across. Okay. But let's say we don't want it that short. You know, we're talking a totally different haircut now. But if you didn't want to start so short, but you just wanted some longer layers that laid, let's say around the ear, I would actually take the hair, watch where it falls, go, okay, around here is where I want that layer to start. And I would start there and walk it across. Now, when I say walk across, each one of these triangles has a point, okay? Wherever that point is where you're going to point to. So on the top here, here's the point, and it's going this way. That's why I directed it that way. When I was here, it's directed this way. I'm going to direct it just straight where that arrow keeps going. I'm going to continue that on. So I'll do that same thing. Again, if we want to repeat the layers, we pick up the guide from our previously cut section. See, this one is a lot longer because we purposely wanted to showcase where that was going to be. And this point goes in this direction. So I'm going to follow that. So here is our entrance that just fell out. And I'm going to walk that across all the way to the end. Now, if you're worried about the density of the hair, you can see that this all has already fallen out. So if you get and you cut a little bit off of the ends here, you run out of hair, it's okay because all of this still has that density still there. We have not cut into the perimeter of that haircut. All right, we have two sections left. So on this side, we had that short little bitty, the short piece. We're going to continue that on because that is really what I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of those layers within here. Okay, so I'm going to pick that up, find my previously cut section. It's right here. This guy goes over there. It's right here. Lift up, work that across, and cut that off. All right. This is our final section. Picking up our previously cut section, here's our guide right there. I'm going to put that in with it so we know exactly where we started. And we're going to be directing it this way because that's where our point leads us to. And walk that all the way across. Now, I know that I'm not showing this very clearly, so I want to show you. As I'm cutting, I'm not like cutting into my hand or anything because we don't want to have, you know, a triage moment, but I have this locked against my fingers the whole time. So I'm not getting into cutting myself. All right, we have now created all these fun layers on top. You can see that they're all the way up there, but they beautifully blend all the way down. Here's that gold piece I was talking about. She fell out. But they blend all the way down. So we have layers all the way throughout, but we're not taking away any density down here with doing that. So I love how that looks. Now, how do we incorporate the sides? What do? I would take this side and actually subdivide it. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do every single section, but I would take well, actually, let's do it on this side and I won't do it on the other, but we'll see the completed one on one side. On this, we're going to subdivide this side into a horizontal subsection. And I'm going to create 2 subsections in this with a backward diagonal parting. Did I say that rightly? A diagonal back parting. That's what I'm trying to say. A diagonal back parting. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take this section and bring this out. And on the bottom, if you remember, we did the in and out layering. So we're going to do that again. So this is our bottom section. We're trying to remove a little bit of density, but by doing that, we're also creating movement with inside that hairstyle. Same thing on this side. And I can pick up my guide. Here is my guide that I started with, working that down. All right, now here's our top. This is where we want to get those internal and top layers. So we're going to do another horizontal across subsection. This is where we're doing the up and out movement. We're repeating what we did underneath in the back. So I'm going to subdivide that into 2 vertical subsections. And up and out. And then using my previously cut subsection as my guide of where I'm entering and exiting. Again, here in the front, I am taking this section and intertwining it with the back one, laterally directing it back slightly because we're trying to maintain that hairline and not get rid of too much hair right in the front here. All right, and then this top section, this is where the layering happens. This is where everybody sees it. We're going to incorporate what we have in the back. So I take these and subdivide them. We're going to continue that beach ball, okay? We have our 3, I'm only taking 3 radial sections in the front here. I'm going to lift this up and we're going to continue exactly what we just did. Here is our guide from our previously cut one. We're going to take that and walk it across. Let me move this out of the way. Take that and walk that across. All right, next section. In the front, we don't have a lot of density. I specifically don't. So if somebody were just to take it up and cut it, I would have like, if you can see, I have like a very big recession area here. So if you were just to take that up, I would have a hole. So we are extra careful with this top section and we're going to take this back. We're going to laterally direct this back and then just mimic this and go over. So we're trying to be very thoughtful of the fact that there is a recession there. There's a lot less density in that area, working up and over. And everything in the front top, we're going to take to the back opposite corner. So if we're in the front, their front right, we're going to be directing it to their back left. We're doing everything to get that layering consistent, but maintain density as much as possible. Now we could layer this, but we are going to go in with a fringe. So we're just going to skip that part. So you would repeat the same thing on the opposite side. And now we're going to give her a little fringe. So in that top part, we basically repeated what we did in the back underneath on those layers. And then the top, the only difference is that we met with the same guide, but we directed everything to the back corner of the opposite back corner so that we could maintain density up here. So now she wants the curtain bangs that everyone is asking for. And we are going to section this fringe out. There's a lot of ways to do curtain bangs. I think we've all seen 100 different ways to do it. I like to do it in a way where I take my fringe section that I like. I usually generally guide is about 2 inches back from the hairline and from the recession is a general guide. Now you might have somebody that wants less than that. You might have somebody that wants way more than that, and that is totally fine as well. And I'm going to go in and subdivide this in half. Okay. And now this all depends on what they're looking for. If they wanted a really solid fringe, I would not have any elevation, right? Because when we elevate, we create layers, we create softness. So if they wanted a really solid curtain bang, we're not going to elevate it, but I'm going to direct it across her face shape because I want to have a little bit of short to long on that side. So I'm going to go in. Now this, you can, if we're not moving it, you can cut just straight off, whatever works for you, but right like that. And then as you drop it down, you're going to have short to long, but it's going to be very solid because we did not elevate it. I tend to like to elevate it. So I like to take this and let's say she wants it to start around her lips. So I'm going to measure where that is with my fingers. Okay, I know what I need to take off for that. I'm going to elevate it up. I'm going to elevate that up and then still bring it across. And you can point cut if you would like softness, whatever you would like to do there, or just solid and bring that over. And you're going to have a softer fringe, but it's going to go from short to long because we've elevated it, we've over directed it, we've done everything. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And I will be using this centerpiece as my guide because again, we always want to have a guide post for what we're doing and bring that across. Here's my guide and just cutting that off. If I want to, again, I can go in with point cutting. Now what I actually like to do next is I like to take this and subdivide the fringe into 3 radials. And then I actually like to lift it up and create even more layering. So I take this section up. See, I have all this to work with. And I personally like to go in and that's when I point cut and take a little bit off. So I'm layering it even more on that fringe. Same thing on the opposite sides. I just lift that up. That guy does not belong there. Here, let's go back to your place. Lift that up. And I'm just taking a little bit off. You can be more aggressive if you'd like. Here I am again. I'm just going to take that little corner off.
Hey, Miss Tina.
Yes, darling.
There is a stylist out here, Lisa, who would like to know, how do you know how far across the face you're bringing that section?
Oh, for the fringe?
Yes.
Okay, for the fringe. How do I know how far across? That is a very good question. So how far do I know how far across? It depends on what kind of swoop I want at the end. So if I did not want it to have any kind of short to long, that's when you just bring it down and cut it straight off. If you want it to have, so this is all dependent on what your client wants. If you want it to have a little bit of an arc, I'm just going to bring it over to the nose. If I want it to have a really good swing from short to long, I bring it over to the other eye or around there or even further, just depending on what kind of swing you want to have. Because the more I move over, you can see now that that's where this all popped back out because I haven't cut that. So let's actually go ahead and do it because this is a mannequin and we can play. But that just creates more shortness to long right in that front. So whatever, it exaggerates it more, the more you pull it across. So it's completely dependent on what you want. I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, please let me know. And then because we did that, let's do that again on the opposite side. We've got a little nibble. because we didn't do that before. Okay, next step is I like to take, and I like this front here. Look how great. She's got a little bit of like Joan Jett 80s vibes going on, and I'm loving it. I would like this front though to not have like bangs and then the end. I like for all of this to move very freely together. So I'm going to move her up. No, I'm not. My mannequin stand does not go any further. Sorry, guys. I'm going to try and back up a little bit. That works. Okay. Okay. So for this part, we're going to take the bottom of our fringe as our guide, and we're going to go in, and I'm just going to customize this face framing to what we already have. So I'm going to separate off that front. And that's why that front, we really wanted to be very careful about not taking away too much density. I'm going to go in, here's my guide. I like to go in back or like this. I have my shears anchored, and I'm just lightly nibbling all the way down. This is where I would say structure and motion comes in so handy, because I'm not having to like figure out where I can just move from this length to this length in one even movement. I'm just anchoring my shears and working my way down. On the opposite side, when you move over there, it's a little harder. I'm going to be honest, it's easy for me because on the right hand side to go down this way. When I go on the opposite side, I change my hand a little bit. Now I need to place my hand on my wrist because I need to anchor this to something. I can't just free flow out there because then I have no control. So I'm going to be taking my shears, resting them on this hand. Here is where the hair goes. So we're working as a tandem team together, working our way down. So I will go in here. I put my comb really far down in my hand because otherwise it gets in the way. I have anchored my shears and see I'm working my way down. All the way down to the front, to the perimeter. And now we have short to long, we have face frame, we have all our layers working together perfectly. So that is our layered haircut. And I hope you guys liked it. But now we get to go into product talk because let's be honest, that's the icing on the cake. That's what we really love to see. So I have a mannequin over here who's already completed. She's a little bit shorter, but she's a lot layered, as you can see. We did a lot of the layers. We have styled her out. So let's talk about products we can do to amplify these haircuts. Well, first of all, we're going to, when I talk with my guests, depending on their hair type, if they blow dry their hair, I'm going to be talking about Root Pump or Root Pump Plus. And the difference between the two is dependent on the hair type of the person that is sitting in your chair. Root Pump is intended for fine to normal hair. I think I did a video for you guys and I said, think thread versus Root Pump Plus is more of for thicker, coarse to normal hair. Think of twine. This is going to hold up a much thicker hair strand than this would. Could you use either one on the opposite hair type? You sure can. You can do whatever you want. But I personally have fine hair. And when I used Root Pump Plus, I felt like it was way too heavy on my hair. And I actually didn't like it until I tried regular Root Pump. And I was like, oh, this one is for me. Now, these products are intended to go into wet hair and then blow dry. So if they don't blow dry, they're just going to end up feeling like a gel in their hair, which is fine. But to get the benefit of the volume, you're going to put these in, spray at the root, then blow dry, and that really amplifies that hair and lifts it up, and you have a lot of beautiful volume. So we're going to start with Root Pump or Root Pump Plus. Now we have a couple more that we like to put in dry hair. Well, actually, we have a couple we can still put in wet hair. So now we have some of our texture line. Now, if I know that some of these are optional, Carrie, but they are so fantastic. And from talking to Sharon, we have a couple that are just flying off the shelf. So let's talk about them. Texture line is going to create that. Our big line helps to create volume and lift. But let's say somebody already has volume or they like the volume they have, but they want to really emphasize a lot of that layer that you just put in. We're going to recommend our texture line. So we have Beach and Spray. Now, Beach and Spray is a texturizing beach spray, but why it's super unique is it's formulated with sugar instead of a drying, more of a drying feeling. This is going to give you that softer texture so the hair won't feel overly gritty or dry. This is going to give you 100% more volume, so a lot more volume and texture within the hair. So that is our Beach and Spray. Then we have Foam Party, which is one of my favorites. Of course, we talk about shaking it first. It looks like whipped cream. It smells like the beach. This is probably my number one go-to, especially if they already have a little bit of lived-in texture. Before I dried this mannequin, I actually put in Foam Party because I like these mannequins do have some texture on their own. And then blow dry. You can blow dry, not blow dry, let it air dry. They're going to work very similarly and really give you that great texture and emphasize that. Then we have in our texture line, the one that Sharon was saying is just flying off the shelves, is our Surfer Girl. So Surfer Girl is a dry texture spray. I love this because it is two-way nozzle. So we have this, which is easy for a hairstylist or yourself. Actually, excuse me, if you're spraying this on yourself, you're going to be using this nozzle. But as a hairstylist, we have the trigger spray, so you can spray either way. Either way works just fine. And it gives you that really great, like amplified, dry, like beachy texture. The reason we have two different nozzles is if you try to spray this on yourself, this feels really awkward, but you're easily able to spray it with this nozzle. So it's for your customers and for yourself. I love that they thought of that. Then if we want to continue doing big and volume, we have our cream to powder play. This is our cream that goes in mid-shaft to ends, and it will amplify the hair by 100%. It 100% works. A little bit goes a long way. It actually feels like a dry powder once you work it through the hair, but this goes into the hair, helps to lift up that hair strand. Think of it like powder play, but for your ends, and it's like a creamier version. And I just love it. It works so great. And then, of course, we have our powder play and then our powder play light. So powder play is a texturizing powder that you take and sprinkle into the hair. We're going to take and lift in and sprinkle wherever we want that volume to be. And then go ahead and massage that into the section. And that friction is where we're going to get the heat for that product to emulsify and really amplify that section. I love to use this if you have a client that is losing density in their hair or their fringe is really fine. I love to sprinkle that in right at the fringe area and work it over because it really controls that section. That's actually how I control if somebody has curtain bangs, but they want them to swoop out of the way all day. I teach them to use powder play to really get that where they want it to be, because though I love hairspray, you can rework powder play all day long. So it's continually reworked and you can work it all day long if you need to re-put your bangs back where you want them to be. I also really like it for back combing to really lock that in. It's just a fantastic product. Now, for those people that felt that powder play was a little too heavy, we have powder play light. Powder play light is just a lighter version formula-wise, and it dispenses a little bit different. You puff it in versus sprinkle. So it's a lot easier to get it throughout the entire shape of the hair. And then last but not least, we always like to finish off with our hero product. It's her birthday this year, Spray and Play, our classic hairspray. This has a hold of 7 on a scale of 10 and really helps. This is our number one selling hairspray. So I feel like this goes without saying. We love this product. We love what it does. And we have just really been proud of what she's done since she was created. So those are all of our hero products and what you can utilize to help amplify texture behind the chair, help to amplify the volume and the layers that you created. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for taking time with me today to learn about layering and texture and our sexy hair products. I wish you all success in the next coming months as you're working on retailing and promoting sexy hair and our products. We appreciate you guys. And thanks again for joining. I hope you have a fantastic day. And Sharon, if there's anything else, you let me know.
We're good. Thank you so much, Tina. Oh my gosh. Thank you for all the information you shared today.